Welcome to this week's segment of the Blitz Crosstalk. I'm joined by G-Bag Nation co-host and former NFL scout Brian Broaddus. Brian, are you ready for this Cowboys-Chiefs Week 11
I'm going to
matchup?
ask you, are you ready? Can you cover these guys? you got Travis Kelce this one?
Yes. Well, I think what's so perplexing about this week is you have the Chiefs' offensive onslaught versus Cowboys' offensive juggernaut this week.
Yeah. It's, if you look at, and everybody likes to play with numbers, and that's how you measure, but like old crusty scouts like me, I use the eye test. My thing, you young folks with all these numbers, and good for you guys, but the eye test on this one is really where we're at this week. Both teams offensively have so many weapons. It's going to be difficult. The defenses have weapons too that can counteract that maybe, but it's tough. These games are so tough to play in because it just comes down to one play, one series, one stop, one mistake, and you could play really, really well the whole game, and then all of a sudden have one bad thing happen because you didn't cover in the slot, or you didn't allow you didn't block a blitz off the edge, and then your game is wrecked. And that's. But when the schedule came out, Bray, we were talking about this was one of those games you circled. You said, okay, this is going to be a measuring stick game for the Cowboys. They find a way to go to Arrowhead Stadium, win a game like this. That gets you into the conversation. This team has been in the Super Bowl the last 2 years. They won the Super Bowl. So, yeah, I mean, you can say what you want about Kansas City being 6-4. That's still a good football team over there.
Well, and both coming off dominant wins, Cowboys over Atlanta last week, and then the Chiefs over the Raiders.
Right.
But when you look at Mahomes' go-to targets, the Chiefs lead the league in yards after catch. Yes, largely due to, of course, Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
And Tyreek Hill. God, I feel like this is foreshadowing. We were talking about, Kyle Pitts and Cordell Patterson last week.
Right.
But this week, when you look at Hill, he's got the vertical speed. And then you look at Travis Kelce. This is a guy that's effective on those chip and release routes.
Scare me again.
Inside option routes.
Yeah.
What do you think the Cowboys will do this week to try and contain those guys? Do you jam them at the line of scrimmage? Who do you put on them? What are your thoughts on this one?
Somebody's been watching film. Somebody's been watching film. Good for you.
No,
that's exactly where it needs to be. I think that when you start to talk about with the Cowboys, I am not going to allow these receivers any free access and routes. I am not. I know people have talked about you play the cover 2, the clog and cover, rush 3, drop 8. I was talking with some coaches in the AFC West who know and play the Chiefs, and they say, listen, you got to be really patient when you play Mahomes. You could rush 3, you could drop 8. It seems to be like make him have to read the field, kind of encourage him to run if he wants. I mean, he's going to run and slide. So, but he does some timely stuff there. And I think that to me, where you look at this, you got to say, it's going to be about don't allow them to have that free access and routes. Right. I mean, that's the thing. It's just going to be, if you let them get up the field and get crossing routes, or go vertically, or cross where they run you through trash, you're going to have some problems. You really, really are. And so to me, I'm kind of like, jam them on the line, do the best you can to hold, and then kind of run with them the best you can and match up that way.
When teams have had a lot of success in cover 2 against Mahomes, and you looked at what the Chiefs did, played a lot of cover 3, so then that left you susceptible in the middle of the field, and they got gashed on, the intermediate routes last week. So when you look at Mahomes, do you think, A, that they should send a spy, potentially a Micah Parsons, or, like you said, what do they do up front? Do you rush 3? Do you play more of maybe like a 2 gap? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think that when you start to talk about, and really a great job of listening to Coach Mike and kind of figuring this out, when we talk about setting that high, Mahomes is going to get in the shotgun generally. He's going to take the snap and he's going to go back 2-3 steps, and then he's going to go forward in the pocket. And what Bree's talking about is when he sets high, he is going to get you to come up the field to him. And then when he gets you up the field, his tackles are going to push you by as he's moving forward. If you go back, if you go back and you watch how they played against Tennessee, Tennessee did a great job when he set deep and was coming forward. the Titans had pressure in the middle of the pocket, and they were able just to close on him quick. So I think that's the plan right now is what you have to do. You have to figure out a way to not take the bait, go high. You almost have to go rush where he's going to end back up.
Okay.
Because if he's throwing if he's throwing deeper, then maybe he's throwing off his back foot a little bit more. It's when Pat comes forward that he makes the best throw. The Cowboys play guys like this too with Russell Wilson's the same way. Russell Wilson's the type of guy that when he runs forward, he makes his best throws. And Mahomes is the same way. And you talked about the arm angle and stuff. So I think it's going to be really, don't rush where he starts, rush where he's going to be, and then push the middle of that pocket as hard as you can and see if you can get some pressure. Because when he steps up, and that's going to be, I think, a lot of Micah Parsons in this game. I don't think it's Micah Parsons off the edge. I think it's Micah Parsons in the middle of that defense. And he's going to, when Mahomes drops and starts to come forward, you're going to see Micah Parsons run like a son of a gun and try. Because we saw him, if you remember Sam Darnold, I think it was in the game several weeks ago against Carolina, where Darnold was kind of drifting. And what did Parsons do? Parsons just shot forward and Darnold really didn't have anything to do with the ball. I mean, he was like, oh my gosh, this guy's on me. And so I think that's the same thing you're going to see with the Cowboys and Mahomes. I think your spy in this game is going to be a big guy that can finish, he can cover, and he can run. And that's Micah Parsons in this game.
Right. Oh, yeah. That rare closing speed is going to be a huge thing this week, I think. So when you look at Travis Kelce, do you think potentially a guy like Jaron Kearse, kind of the lengthy, the rangy guy, what do you think about putting him as more of a person that stays with Kelce?
Yeah, it's interesting. The guy on the radio, I call this guy kind of not Kearse, but I called Jordan Lewis like the junk cover guy. Because if you give him some junk cover, we've seen him cover against New Orleans, with Alvin Kamara. Last week against Pitts, Pitts started off early in the game, and they shifted Lewis over to that side, and he was able. The thing about Jordan Lewis, in my opinion, is he's not scared. He doesn't. It doesn't matter your size. He is going to find a way to battle you, whether it's in route, at the ball, tackle. I mean, he's going to try and be disruptive in that way. So Kelce is a problem because what happens is, and you've watched this on tape much like I have, he's going to play like out wide. He's going to play as a slot. He's going to play as a wing. Oh my gosh, wait, he's blocking. And then he releases and they throw him the ball. I mean, they throw screens to him. They do all kinds of things with him. And so you're going to have a guy that just does. And the thing about with Jordan Lewis is he's used to playing inside where people, when you're in the slot corner and you get run through trash and you have to deal with people and you have to escape, he's comfortable playing that way. And if you look at the way that Kelce runs those routes, it's a lot underneath, it's a lot of crossing routes, it's receivers coming from one side, him going to another. So if you have a guy that's comfortable playing that way, man, I could see Kearse like you're talking about, but I could also see Jordan Lewis being the guy as well.
Well, and last week in Atlanta, it was kind of a similar. You had Pitts that did really well in the beginning. They had Diggs on him, was able to get several big gains. Yeah. And then Jordan Lewis gets on him. Matt Ryan targets him and went for that out-breaking route. And he's able, with a guy like that with that massive catch radius and Jordan Lewis, 5'10" guy, jumps up and bats it down. That's the thing
about with Jordan. He is so competitive. And, it's almost like a challenge to him. It's almost to like Byron Jones was the same way when he was here. You could throw Byron Jones on those Philadelphia tight ends, and those guys catch the ball. They run great routes. They get open, and these guys accept that challenge. You go and you hold Kelce in check. That's a way to get notoriety around the league. It's like, wow, look at that tape. Who held him in check? Jordan Lewis held him in check. That's a way you get a lot of notoriety with people, and these general managers or player personnel guys. If you get the free agency or get that new contract, what can you do with this guy? Well, man, you could throw him on slots. You could throw him on these big tight ends. He has no problem in the coverage.
what he lacks in size, he makes up for.
He is. He is so competitive. He really, really is. And that's the great thing about him. I mean, really, really, that's a great thing. But you bring up the point about Curse, and that's your length, that's your size, that's another competitive guy. But yeah, you almost have to hold this guy every single play. And if the officials let you play, that's great. If they don't, Dallas is going to get a lot of defensive holding penalties in this game.
Right. Well, and last week, the Cowboys offense was back to being their explosive self. Was Dak, evenly distributing the ball, several different targets. What do you think the Chiefs defense is going to try and do this week? And do you see more of a run or pass heavy script this week for Dallas?
I think Dallas is going to, this could be, now you're Dallas talking Dallas offense, right?
Yes.
I think this is going to be my keep an eye on player for this game.
Okay.
I think Dallas is going to be able to run the ball with Tony Pollard at running back. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Because the Chiefs are a big front,
Yes.
and size-wise.
Mm-hmm.
And when they see movement, when they feel like the ball is going to the edge, they react in a way of going with the ball. They're going to try, and Noddy and those guys are going to try and fight to get to the ball front side. Where I think where Pollard has a little bit more of an advantage over Zeke in this game is that when they all start moving, they don't come back. They go move, move, and then they don't redirect as well coming back the other way. So I could see getting all these guys going one way and then Pollard taking the ball back. I mean, it's like press it, cut it, and then, that's, I think it's going to be the key in this football game. I think Dallas can run the ball against Kansas City. And I'm not going to say it's going to be completely run heavy, but I think they're going to be able to make some plays. Get everybody moving one direction, that front seven, get them moving, and then boom, cut that ball back behind the center. And, on the backside there, you've got guys like, especially if you start at left onto Tyron Smith's side, and then all of a sudden that thing, they get everybody going. And then here's Zach Martin pushing from the backside, Collins pushing from the backside. Now they're caving stuff down inside, and that ball comes back behind all that. So I think that's how Dallas is going to run the ball this week. And I think that Pollard will have more success doing it than, say, Zeke. Yeah, I think that will be, I think when the numbers play, if Dallas wins this game, I think it's going to be because they were able to run the ball with Tony Pollard more than Zeke.
Right, when he's shifty, elusive out in space,
Right.
Zeke's more of that power through tackles. And I mean, you just look at what the Chiefs have been able to do with Williams, the passing game.
Exactly.
And Tony provides that same, ability.
This team, I mean, Kansas City really doesn't want to run the ball. I mean, I don't know why they wouldn't try. I mean, the Denver Broncos, you watch what the Broncos did, and they had success. And, the Chiefs, they're struggling at offensive tackle, at right tackle. It's been kind of a revolving door over there a little bit. But, yeah, I mean, I would see the Chiefs trying to do the same thing. They're going to say, well, let's take advantage of the lack of some of the size that you have on the Cowboys defensive front. So whatever team is able to kind of get that going, the Cowboys, I think, are better equipped to do it. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs tried it.
Well, moving to the Cowboys offensive line, looking at the configuration against Kansas City, potentially going to get Tyron Smith back this week, and he's been rehabbing the ankle. But what are you thinking at left guard? Connor Williams.
Are you hinting something?
Connor Williams has 13 penalties. Granted, some of them suspect, but still.
Yeah.
Leads the league. So what potentially do you think the Cowboys could do this week for the starting five?
I like what you're doing here.
I know
you're leading the witness. I love this. Yeah, you know what? I wouldn't be surprised. These next three games, I think, are huge. I mean, when Kansas City, the Raiders, and then the Saints. I think you find a way. Yeah, you find a way to be. If you're 3-0, man, you're one of the best teams in the NFL. If you get 3-0 through these games, 2-1, you're still, 1-2. You get a little 0-3. But I kind of feel like, though, to me, it's now about, you can't get in these games. You could get away with maybe playing against Atlanta or Carolina or the Giants or somebody like that and have a holding penalty. You get a 28-yard pass and it comes back because of holding or a chop block or something like that. Whether that's right or wrong, it's still what it is. And I think the Cowboys are really concerned about the penalties at left guard. And I wouldn't be surprised. I really, and I think you're onto something with this whole thing with, maybe looking at Connor McGovern there. I don't think they want to move Lyle Collins, but they could play this thing straight up like we've seen this will be the first time if Connor Williams starts. It'll be the first time that they've got their offensive line all together. They talked about it with us when we were at training camp, like, oh, we're so excited about having our 5 offensive linemen. They haven't played their 5 offensive linemen yet. Right. And so, it might be one of those things to say, well, let's just go through it and see what happens. But I think you're onto something. I think that we could see a move at left guard, and that would be Connor McGovern playing there for right now and keeping Lyle Collins at right tackle.
When you see how much this staff loves Connor McGovern, I mean, God, you mentioned his name and they all laugh. I mean, God, the dude's lining up at wide receiver in a bunch formation. I mean, tailback, fullback. I mean, he's all over the place. So and it's certainly a guy that they want to incorporate in some fashion.
Yeah, they but he's had his share of problems too. He could get the one thing that happens with Connor Williams is then he plays 75 or 65 to 70 plays, and you grade him, and there's 4 bad plays, and maybe a couple more penalties. He gets off balance. His technique gets sloppy. It happens to offensive linemen in game. It just doesn't always happen to Zach Martin because he's always in position, and Zach Martin holds every play. Zach Martin gets his hands inside, and you want Zach Martin, he holds, but he doesn't get caught because he's not sloppy with the way he plays. He's not off balance. He's not grabbing, he's not hooking, he's not doing all that. He's just grabbing and sitting down on the guy. And that's where Connor Williams has those problems. And then when he tries to do that, he gets out of balance and all that. So we'll see. I'm interested. I'm interested if they're really, they're thinking like, we cannot afford any more negative penalties. And that's something that Mike McCarthy has been talking about. Right? And you sit in those press conferences and Mike's like, we've got to stop these penalties. The turnovers are coming now. We've talked about turnovers. We've got to stop these penalties. And this might be the message that he sends to his team is that we're not going to tolerate having any more penalties on this offensive line.
Well, and that was something McCarthy even explained after the Broncos game. He even said, I think we maybe spent a little bit too much time working on those penalties, instead of maybe going over some of the fundamentals or going through game plan more or looking at the playbook more instead, but they were focusing on penalties, and you saw the defense maybe on a few plays trying to get the ball out instead of actually finishing the tackle.
You're right, yeah.
So...
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think as as you're out here this week and reporting on this, and we're going to talk about it, I know, on the radio, it's, if they make that change, because they always tell us about continuity. Continuity is so big, continuity. It's really now it's about really like we can't accept penalties anymore. We can't have the most penalized offensive lineman in the league playing and potentially costing us a game because we have a holding call on the goal line when we're trying to score the game-winning touchdown.
Right.
Can't have that. And so, and Connor McGovern could make the same mistake. Any one of those guys can make the same mistake. But it just seems like that the officials have like really honed in on Connor Williams, and he's suffering for it.
Oh, yeah. When you look at the Chiefs' offensive line, a lot of new faces. Everybody saw just constantly harass Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. The Bucs did. How do you see that continuity in that unit working this season? New center rookie for Creed Humphrey out of Oklahoma. I mean, he was an athletic guy. A lot of the counter pull is the bread and butter there for Lincoln Riley and Bill Bedenbaugh. So what have you seen from their unit this season?
I tell you what, it's been a group that's been banged up a little bit. Creed Humphrey has come in and really done a nice job for them. And it's funny, he's a left-handed center. So it's kind of weird when you watch tape and you're so used to seeing right-handed centers, but here's a left-handed center. And so he's done a really, really nice job. But yeah, that right tackle spot has just not been very good for them, and we'll see. They're starting a couple of rookies and, I think if the Cowboys are able to take advantage, I saw some problems in the middle against Tennessee, like I say, with the push. Right tackle, we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I mean, they really put it all together last week against the Raiders. And the Raiders, I feel like, are a good pass rushing team, and they were able to give Mahomes enough time to throw. But there's been some games where these guys haven't held up as well, and Mahomes has had to kind of move around and try and buy some time. And what happens with Mahomes is when he turns over the ball, it's generally because someone's pressuring him, and then he like switches over to his left hand and tries to throw it, or he does something crazy, and you're like, oh, but that all comes from pressure. So I think that, if the Cowboys can, it just hurts without Randy. It just hurts without him, but maybe you don't have to have, here I am talking about pass rush. And like this AFC coach is saying, hey, you can rush 3 and you can kind of, make it muddy for him in there. Maybe, you need to have another great game from a Dorrance Armstrong. You can't have Dorrance Armstrong play one great game and then be gone for 3. You're going to need more consistency, and Basham and Armstrong and any one of these guys that has an opportunity to rush, Osa, Odigizua, anybody that has an opportunity to rush, you got to get home. And if you can knock this guy around and you can get him on the ground, or you can get him moving around where he maybe has to throw it off balance. And he's one of the best ever at throwing it sidearm, underhand, left-handed, whatever. But if you could kind of hit, some of his mistakes are when he feels pressure. And this offensive line for the Chiefs has given up some pressure.
Well, and I think, like you said, this is going to be key for getting home and not over pursuing, because then he'll kill you. He'll get in those vacated areas up the middle and extend plays. And I think you saw a little bit of that, when we played the Broncos. Guys weren't able to get home, and then you saw
the move
plays, and especially down the sideline.
Yeah, the Cowboys. You're right, Bree. Yeah, the Cowboys can't afford to have the Chiefs have the ball for 40 minutes, even though the Chiefs are a very quick strike. I mean, they're very capable, but I think the coverage on the outside, I think playing that press coverage, playing man, I would rather a quick death than a slow death. But but they might slow death this thing. They might play cover 2 and press this thing and make this guy and have to look and look and look and look. And if, if they make him have to be patient, that was, again, one of these things the coaches in the AFC told me. They're like, listen, if you make this guy have to play with patience, he doesn't always like to do that. And so I think there's a couple of different ways, but man, it's hard. It's a hard offense to play against just because of the weapons they have at wide receiver, at tight end, and at quarterback.
Oh yeah, future Hall of Famers.
All of them. All of them. And you don't have future Hall of Famers covering them, and that's the problem.
Right.
That's the biggest issue.
Yeah. Well, Zach Martin is.
he's blocking. That's
right. Yeah. Well, Brian, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Stay tuned next week for more of the Blitz Crosstalk.